Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Tony Talks where I have conversations with inspirational leaders, influencers, and change makers, people that aren't just doing well in life, but that are doing good in the world. And today I have a special guest who is still joining us. So again, I don't know, we've been having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we are having her jump on any minute. So today I have with me an amazing individual that's very inspirational, and I can't wait to share her and her story. Hopefully we've got this sound check figured out. If not, I'll have to redo it, but I had to start this stream because Facebook and YouTube only hold it open for 10 minutes. So I've got to start straight away. Can you hear me, Scarlett? Okay, I'm still not being able to hear you. I don't know what's going on. If I could, I'm going to have you come off and just jump back in using that same link. Okay, I'm gonna get you out now. Okay, there we go. Okay, so while she comes back in, I just want to introduce Scarlett Lewis to you. Again, remembering that this is a conversation both with me and not just with me and Scarlett, but also with all of you, and looking forward to your comments and your questions. Hey, Scarlett, can you hear me? You can hear me, but I still can't hear you. I don't know. Okay, so let me just turn on one of my other computers, and perhaps that will help. I'm not sure what is going on with the audio. Never had a problem with this platform, and now 2 days in a row I'm having a little problem. Well, I'm going to intro you while I set up the other computer anyway. So Scarlett Lewis founded the Jessie Lewis Choose Love movement after her son was unfortunately murdered in this Sandy Hook tragedy in December 2012. Shortly after his death, Scarlett decided to be part of the solution to the issue that we're experiencing in our society today, and that caused that tragedy. She created a movement and became an advocate for character development and social and emotional learning, otherwise known as SEL, that teaches children how to manage their emotions, feel connected, and have healthy relationships. Scarlett created the Choose Love Enrichment program, at no cost, comprehensive social, emotional learning, and character development program that empowers educators and their students to choose love for themselves and for others. The program teaches children how to handle adversity, have courageous conversations, and how to respond with love. The Choose Love Enrichment program has been downloaded in all 50 states and in more than 100 countries. The program includes the best of what is statistically effective and being taught in classrooms today that can reduce and prevent mental illness, substance abuse, bullying, and more. So with that said, I'm going to try to bring you in here, Scarlett, somehow. We're going to figure this out. Scarlett is an amazing individual. We have a mutual friend, and that's how we were connected. Another amazing individual that you've met. She's already been a guest on Tony Talks as well. You know and love her, Dana Lisa Gang. Hopefully she's already on here as well. Oh, she is. There you go. So, hey guys, while you're already out there, so hey Gina, hey Dana, can you guys hear Scarlett? So Scarlett, if you could speak, see if they can hear you. Can't hear Scarlett. Okay, so let's see what we can try to do here, because we tested this about 2 hours ago and it worked perfectly. It's that love-hate relationship I have with technology kind of working again. Let me just, actually, I'm going to try to jump on myself on my phone and see if, like I did yesterday, and perhaps we can make that work and I can hear you from my phone. Now it says can't hear Scarlett Lewis. So let's see here. Let's see if I can hear you from my phone. Okay, so can you speak, Scarlett? I haven't got you. All right, we're going to have you try to get off one more time. Can you perhaps reboot your phone? Turn off your phone and turn it back on again? Yeah, let's do that, because it's kind of wacky. Yesterday when I got done with my show, I rebooted the computer, then I had no problem So I don't know that it's on this side, and I just tried from my phone, so I couldn't hear you there either, and nobody else can hear you, which was not happening yesterday. So see you in a minute or two. All right. So everyone, you've just got me for the time being. Let's just remove her, and hopefully she'll be back on with us in a few minutes. Hey, Dana, you are one of my favorite people too. I really appreciate you. So yes, Scarlett has this Choose Love movement. I'm actually going to read a little bit more of her bio since it's just us in here right now. Just so that you guys can know a little bit more. Since the tragedy, Scarlett has spoken all across the U.S. and internationally to diverse audience, urging everyone to become part of the solution to the issue the world is facing. Scarlett has spoken in national and statewide community-based events, including hundreds of talks in schools to educators and administrators. She was a keynote speaker at the 2018-2019 National Forum on Character presented by Character.org, the Music City SEL Conference in Nashville, and the Nebraska Mental Health Conference. Additionally, Scarlett was interviewed on BBC, Fox News, CBS, The Today Show, and many regional papers and podcasts about CLEP and the benefits of SEL, which obviously SEL is social emotional learning. You know, the reason, and I had a long talk with Scarlett last week, which was amazing. And, you know, we talk about this, that kids are having a problem with the social emotional learning. But the reality of it is, one of the reasons that they have it is because adults also have that social emotional learning deficiency, because many weren't taught that, or we just, you know, and hopefully we can hear her now. I just saw her come in the room as well. Then it says, yeah, in Canada, Hero of Forgiveness Award winner. Yeah, because, you know, to be able to forgive something like that. I can hear you.
You can? I'm not even talking.
I know, but I could hear you move around.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome. So, man, I'm so happy that this got handled, because this would be tragic if we couldn't speak.
This is great.
Thank you so much for coming on. I apologize for whatever the technology gods are doing these days. I did have the opportunity to read the rest of your bio, though, and you heard me start talking about the social emotional learning and how that's some of the challenges that we've got in society today as adults, never mind kids. That's why it's so difficult to teach. That's why so many kids don't have it, because so many parents don't have it. Yeah, everybody can hear now. Beautiful. Cindy, welcome. Gina, welcome. Thank you so much, everyone, and for hanging out here and waiting for us.
Thank you.
Of course. Again, this is a conversation with all of us, not just with myself and Scarlett. So please ask your questions, make your comments, and we'll get to as many of them as possible. So today, I'll already warn you that we're going to go a few minutes over, if you've got the time, Scarlett, just because we started a few minutes late. And I think that this is going to be I had such a great conversation with you a couple of weeks ago. As a matter of fact, I think I can.
Can't hear you. Can't hear.
How does that sound?
That's good. Very good.
Better without the ears or with the ears in?
It's just as good without.
Perfect. I prefer not having them in. So yeah, so we had such a great conversation about, and we're all you know, we're all on the same side. But you know, it's going to be, honestly, I'm so looking forward to this conversation that we started a week or 2 weeks ago. So I read your bio, so if you can just tell us a little bit about, you know, your story and you know what led you here, and you know, share with us a little bit for the audience, members that don't know beyond what I've just read.
Yeah, absolutely. So on December 14th, 2012, I lost my 6-year-old son at Sandy Hook Elementary School. A former student whose mother had worked at the school came back to the elementary school. Adam Lanza was 21 years old, and he proceeded to gun down 20 first graders in 2 first grade classrooms and 6 educators in one of the worst mass murder in U.S. history. And, you know, I knew following that event that was 100% preventable. And I dedicated my life to being part of the solution. I had come home after that. I raised my 2 boys as a single mom in a little farmhouse. And Jesse had left a message on our kitchen chalkboard. He had written 3 words: nurturing, healing, love. And I knew instantly that if Adam Lanza had been able to give and receive nurturing, healing love, the tragedy would never have happened. And so I knew I'd be spending the rest of my life spreading that message. And here I am 7 years later, and doing just that because I believe so much in it.
That's, my heart, bleeds for you and for everyone who had that loss, and for those who continue to lose family members, and especially children, tragically, to this epidemic that we've been facing of mental health, of lack of understanding, lack of emotional intelligence, lack of the emotional support over, and as we spoke earlier, over, I think one of the problems is, big pharma with the and doctors over prescribing medications that maybe probably shouldn't be had. So it's tragic, and again, my heart bleeds for you, and I'm so sorry that you or anyone else have had to go through that.
Bringing that up is it, Tony. We as human beings tend to react, and we focus on the issue. So an issue arises and we address it. So an issue might arise and we might medicate a child for it. But what I'm trying to do is a little bit different. And it's addressing the cause of the suffering. And therefore it is the solution, if you think about it. Because if you're just focusing on the problem, but not addressing the cause, then you're going to be hard pressed to find a solution. And I think that when you look at the issues that we've been having in schools, that were in schools when you and I were there too, bullying, substance abuse, loneliness, suicide, depression, they existed when we were younger, but now they're at epidemic levels. And it's not like we haven't addressed them. It's not like we don't know that they're issues. We have state mandated programs that schools are required to pay for, that we have to pay for as taxpayers. And despite this programming and state laws, the issues continue to escalate. And that is because we are doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Definition of insanity, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
No, to your point, I think you're so right. I think that as a society, certainly as a country, but as a society in general, we tend to over medicate anyway, because medication for the most part just masks the problem. I think it was Desmond Tutu that said, he shares a story about, there was a village where every day, they'd go to the river, they're just pulling bodies out of the river, pulling people out of the river. And after a while, they're just pulling people out of the river. And finally somebody said, we need to go upriver and see what the hell's throwing these people in, right? Pulling people out of the river, whether alive or dead, isn't going to take care of the problem. It's just going to be a constant flow and a constant nightmare of things that are happening beyond our control. We need to go to the source. We need to go see what's throwing the people in the river. What's, in this case, what's pushing people over the edge, right? And you're doing such great work doing that with the emotional learning and teaching that you're doing with your program. And again, I say it all the time, even when I speak to children. I had a conversation at my kids' school with some kids I was telling you earlier, in one of the classes, and I told them at the end of it, I said, listen, guys, this is the same conversation that I'm having with adults, right? Because we all need to have that level of emotional learning and understanding. And they look at me like, really? I'm like, yeah.
I'm laughing because when I speak to kids a lot, and when I speak to them, I say the exact same thing. What you're struggling with, we're struggling with as adults. And it all boils down to social and emotional intelligence. And the interesting thing is, I would not have known this. I'd never even heard of that before Jesse's murder. And when I was searching for a solution, I literally found the Nurturing Healing Love. That was going to be my solution. I was linked up with a doctoral professor, and I said, how do I get these words, this message into schools? And he said, it's called social emotional learning. I start researching it, and I realized very quickly, I don't have these skills, tools, and attitudes. And I'm 44 years old. I'm college educated. My parents were decent. I mean, I've had cool jobs. but I wasn't socially and emotionally intelligent.
Mm.
And, I've learned these skills and tools. You can learn them at any time. They're easy to teach, easy to learn. And I have to tell you that it has changed my life for the better. And that may sound funny from somebody saying that they had their son murdered. And of course, I would give all of my personal development back for 1 second with Jesse, but that's not going to happen. And anyone has access to these skills, tools, and attitudes, and they can use them. And they're things that we practice every single day, and they change your life.
Amazing, amazing. Listen, not to shortcut and cut to the chase, but can you give us one or two of them right now? One or two things that that just maybe one or two quick ones, or we can save that for after our conversation. But I think it's so pivotal, to give, because again, what I'm doing here with this and bringing you and so many other great people on is just educate and give people information and open their eyes, and because so many people, and certainly not anyone who's watching, right? Because anyone who's watching is really about learning and how to be the best version of themselves and get to that next level. Unfortunately, it's the people that aren't watching that need to hear it the most. And this is why we're coming on here, because I think each one teach one, right? We learn and we go and we share with everyone else, right? You plus one we can get to everybody in the world real quick.
Absolutely. And this whole movement, it's called the Jesse Lewis Choose Love movement. The whole movement has spread by word of mouth. We don't do advertising. It is literally people just talking about this, people hearing me speak and saying, oh my gosh, I want my child to have access to those essential life skills that they're going to use for the rest of their life, that we know through decades of research, not only increase grades and test scores, attendance and graduation rates, but they decrease emotional distress, mental illness. It is a statistically effective way to reduce and prevent bullying. And then later in life, we know these kids have less substance abuse, less incarceration, less violence and anger, even less divorce rates. And
Wow.
so it's an obvious thing, but and actually when I learned about it, I thought, oh my God, this is so obvious. How come it's not in front of every child? I mean, we know too much, right? And it's interesting. I think maybe number one is courage. The courage to do something different, the courage to bring a new initiative into a school and know that you're going to have naysayers and do it anyway. The courage to think in a different way that then we're wired to think, because we're wired to focus on the issues. We only have so much time and energy, so we wait till problems develop. And this is more rather than reactive, this is a proactive and preventative way of thinking, but that is a different way than we normally think, and it actually takes courage to bring on an initiative like that. Focus on problems that aren't there yet, decreasing problems that aren't there yet. But it's necessary. And I do believe that with this pandemic that, I'm calling this a brave new world, all of the issues, and by the way, these were epidemics before we went into the pandemic. I mean, school shootings were our new normal. 2018 was the deadliest year on record for school shootings. We had one a week. We had like over one mass murder a day. And so it's not like these things went away when we went back to our homes. These things are silently brewing, and the suffering that our kids had is not getting better. Because there are kids that are not in great situations right now. So this is going to be highlighted even more in the fall when we do go back.
Well, hopefully, and it's an unfortunate situation. So it's so good that you're doing this, and I really want to know more of that. But before we go into it, one of the things that obviously you've had to do, and Dana mentions here, that in Canada you got the Hero of Forgiveness Award. If you can just, go through it a little bit, because obviously I think that the path through anything, through pain, through darkness, through grief, is through forgiveness. And I certainly know that, but I'd love you to share a little bit of how you were able to do that and to get through that.
Yeah, forgiveness is probably the most important part of my healing process. And, people literally say to me, "How could you forgive the man who murdered your son?" And I think in my head, I may not say this, but how could I not? We don't understand forgiveness. And it's so interesting, Tony. I had, I didn't really understand it either in the beginning. And I've had so many interesting conversations, including arguments with my father. I think we didn't talk for 3 months over the definition of forgiveness because he was helping me with the foundation early on. And forgiveness is one of the big character values that we teach. It's one of the main ones because it's really, really important, and people don't understand it. And even people said, "Oh my gosh, you're going to teach kids forgiveness? Don't you think that's a lofty topic?" But the interesting thing is, it's not lofty for kids, it's lofty for us.
Yeah.
Kids love forgiveness. It happens to be their favorite subject in the whole Choose Love movement. And when you ask them why, they say, "Oh, it's because it's like a superpower. It feels so good to let it go." But we don't really understand it. We definitely don't teach it, and we haven't learned it for the most part. Maybe your listeners may have, but forgiveness is really, really cutting the cord that attaches you to
Mm.
pain. It is taking your personal power back. And in some situations, it's the only way to do that. I feel like in my situation, I don't know any other way that I could have taken my personal power back and not been another victim of Adam Lanza. And by that, I mean, give him power. By the way, he's dead. He killed himself, but it doesn't matter because I could still be really angry at him. I could still be giving him control over my thoughts that impact my feelings, that then impact my behavior. But I knew early on I did not want to do that. I did not want to be another victim. I wanted to take my personal power back. And really, the only way that I found to do that was through forgiveness. It was a gift that I gave myself. And really, some people, I've seen some, not that I read comments or anything, but I maybe seen a few that have said, well, she talks a good game, but maybe she really hasn't done it. I really have done it, to the point where, um, finding out about Adam Lanza's life and the pain that he went through, and the fact that even as a little boy, actually going to Sandy Hook Elementary School, he actually attended the school, how he did everything right. As a little boy, he cried out for help. He had special needs that were known and not met. He experienced extreme bullying, and to know those things and to understand the suffering that he went through, and the fact that he got to a place where the only way out for him was to off put as much pain as possible onto as many people. It brings me to a place where it's easier for me to be angry for him than it is to be angry at him. And we talked about this earlier, Tony. What, as human beings, when something happens, our natural tendency is to say, uh, "Whose fault is that?" Especially when something happens that is not good. Whose fault is that? And we look to blame and finger point. And there was a lot of that going on after Sandy Hook. And I was just kind of sitting back and watching it. And a lot of the blame and finger pointing obviously went to Adam Lanza. He was the perpetrator, and his mother. His mother armed him. But it wasn't that easy for me. That just didn't work for me, because I thought, if it really is Adam Lanza's fault and his mother, then it would never have happened before. But wait a minute, it has happened before. And of course, now 7 years later, it would never have happened again.
Right.
But wait a minute, now it's our new normal. So is that Adam Lanza's fault and his mother's fault? Well, no, it can't be. So then this is the thought process I went through right after Jesse's murder. Well, then whose fault is it? all these people are claiming that it's their fault. If it's not their fault, then whose fault is it? And I realized that I would have to take my part of the responsibility. I mean, I live in this world. I live in this community. And unless I took my part of the responsibility, I would be a victim and I wouldn't be able to be part of the solution. And so that's what I've done. And that's really kind of a position of power that I'd rather be in.
Wow. So powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Can you guys hear me? Hold on, let me put these earbuds back in. That's weird. You actually did you get a call in the meantime? You can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yeah, did you get a phone call? Did you get a phone?
Did I did.
Yeah, that knocked it out. Can you
Do you want
go
me to get out and come back?
and come back in?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh wait, hold on. They can say they can hear you. Yeah, unfortunately, when you get a call, there you
I can
go.
hear you now.
Perfect. Yeah, when you get a call for some reason, it throws off the sound. Okay.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you now.
When I unplug these,
Okay, great.
So sorry about that. Yeah, but when the calls come in, they mess with the system. So thank you again, like I said, for that, because that was such a beautifully depicted way of forgiveness. Because you're so right, it's cutting the cords to what the pain was, and that's the only way to really truly be free of that. I'm sure that there's people that were victims of that, both kids and parents alike, and even teachers and people in the community. They're still angry about it because they haven't been able to cut the cord. But the reality of it is, if you don't cut that cord, you suffer. Pain is part of life, and I can't imagine the amount of pain that you went through and everyone else did. But suffering is a choice, and you've made the choice to not suffer by forgiving. So I commend you for that. That was wow. You gave me the chills just saying that, because I couldn't have said it any better myself. And that's something that I've been certainly learning a lot with, through Tony Robbins and being a trainer with him and helping other people through that forgiveness process. That's kind of what we teach. But to hear it coming from you in such a beautiful way, so powerful. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that you said that that's one of the kids' favorite things, because it's a superpower.
Yeah.
And so important and so deep in that is that the hardest thing for any of us to do, is to forgive ourselves. So if we can learn the magic of forgiveness early on, then we could also forgive ourselves. Because if Adam Lanza had been able to forgive himself, if he had been able to end the suffering from the pain that he went through, right? Because he went through pain, but he didn't forgive. So he suffered. That's why, heck, the name of my program is called Get Up and Grow, because we all have to grow through what we go through. And if we don't grow through what we go through, we keep suffering the pains of the past, and then bad things happen. So that's why, I mean, what you're doing is so aligned with what I'm doing that, it's again, I'm so excited to have this conversation. I can't wait to continue this, by the way, beyond today.
I love that. Thank you. And the other thing, Tony, I had a 12-year-old son at the time, and I knew that I would be modeling for him how to get through difficulty in your life. Pain, suffering, all the way up to tragedy. I knew he was watching me. He was actually with me that day. He had been in lockdown in his 7th grade classroom, and he had texted me and asked me if he could wait with me at the elementary school, because they were telling us that the kids were hiding and they were still sweeping the schools. And I thought, well, of course, Jesse's taken a contingent of kids out into the woods and it's going to take them a long time. Yeah, come on, JT. come and wait with me. And meanwhile, Army helicopters are flying overhead, and there's rumors of another shooter. And this was just craziness. But I never in a million years thought that my son wouldn't be coming back alive, because that kind of stuff just doesn't happen to you, right? Ever. That kind of stuff happens to the people on the cover of People magazine, but not to people like me. And so JT, 12 years old, he comes to the firehouse, and he's sitting there, and he's watching all of this chaos, watching people, finding out about their kids and dropping to their knees. And I just, knew that in the moment that I would be teaching him how to handle difficulty going forward in his life. He was watching me, and so much of our communication is not just verbal. It wasn't just what was coming out of my mouth. It was everything. It was how I was acting. It was my everything that I was doing. And that realization really helped me rise to the occasion for JT. And I wasn't acting. I was still emoting. I was showing my emotions, but knowing that I was modeling how I wanted him to handle difficulty for the rest of his life really helped me. And I really like telling that story, because it when you just have, and a lot of this is just awareness. When you have the awareness that you are modeling this behavior, and this is especially important during COVID-19, with parents being home with their kids, and the kids are watching, and they're not just listening, they're watching everything that you do, and you are shaping and molding them to respond during anxious times for the rest of their lives, everything that you do. And I'm not saying you can't make mistakes. I'm not saying I haven't made mistakes, because JT will be the first to tell you that I have. But that awareness, understanding you are modeling this, you are teaching, really helps you be the best version of yourself.
Yeah. Well, the old saying is, kids don't do what you say, they do what you see, right? They do what you do.
Right.
And I'd love to say that I'd love to say that I'm the perfect parent, but we all do the best we can, and really try to be the best examples we can be for our kids. Again, I can't even imagine, what that was like, and the level of in-depth of forgiveness that you had to do, and even with your son. And I commend you for who you are and how you're showing up. And seriously, how you're showing up in the world after this is just astounding and amazing. And again, Dana, I owe you for introducing me to this amazing woman.
That's very nice. I love Dana.
Yeah, so do I. And we all do. There's a bunch of people here that know Dana as well. She's absolutely amazing. So give us so then you created this program, and you've taken it across the country. You're taking it across the world, which is amazing. How's it going? What's the impact? How's it being received? Because the one thing that I know, public school systems in particular, they have their way of doing things, and it's politics, right? And
oh yeah.
And if there isn't a way for somebody to make money from it, and you're giving away this free program, if there isn't a way for somebody to make money for it, it's probably harder for you to get it into the school for free than it would be if you charged for it.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey, because you really want to think that it's what's in the best interest of the child that is always front and center. But that is not always the case, unfortunately. And I can say that because I have been out and traveling and really working in schools, homes, and communities for the past 7 years. And it's been an interesting journey, but it's been pretty amazing. And we've done really what no other program has been able to do. We are now the most taught program in several states. We're being taught in every state in the country. And we have an incredible story in New Hampshire, with an incredible, courageous leader. Leadership makes a huge difference. And let me tell you something, Tony, sitting down with a courageous leader is completely different than sitting down with somebody who is led by fear.
Hmm.
And, Governor Sununu understood the importance of social emotional learning. We actually met him when he was in the process of creating his statewide school safety initiative. In fact, every state is in the process. Governor Sununu was the first governor to release his statewide school safety initiative. He actually focused on social and emotional learning. He chose our program over all of them and made it the backbone of his school safety initiative. And that is because, the focus has been on these external safety measures, active shooter protocol, arming, not arming school resource officers, single point entries, door locks. But that's a reactionary response, and that's okay. I'm not downplaying the importance of external safety measures, but you also have to have internal safety measures. You have to cultivate safety from the inside out of every child by teaching them how to get along, how to have meaningful connections, how to manage their emotions, how to be resilient and grow through issues, how to make responsible decisions. Kids that have those skills and tools, they're not going to want to harm one another. So those are really important. And actually, they're the key components to having a kind, compassionate, loving, connected, accepting culture. And what we're realizing now is really the most important part of having a safe school is having a caring, loving, compassionate culture. And you do that by having a year-long comprehensive social emotional character development program, and that is exactly what Choose Love is. Now, you're right, I have gotten flack because it's free, and and yeah, I have ruffled some feathers because, believe it or not, there's competition and there's ego, and which is always funny because we're talking about social emotional character development programs. But anyway, for me, it had to be free. For one thing, my son was priced out of the market of a social emotional learning program, which is interesting because Sandy Hook is, I don't know, it's like middle class. And we had purchased a comprehensive social emotional learning program, but we'd spent so much money on it that we couldn't afford to train the teachers. This is what the curriculum director in Sandy Hook told me maybe 2 months after the tragedy. So literally she said, quote, "So it never got out of the box." And so I literally, those words are branded into my brain. I took that, I went home and I thought, there has to be a way that we could create a program that, I mean, this is an essential human right. These are called essential life skills. These are human rights. We know so much, and this is all science, by the way. We know how these skills and tools impact kids throughout their lives. I mean, we know now that colleges are looking for these skills and tools. We know the workplace is looking for emotional intelligence, social emotional intelligence over IQ, because the latest research that's come out shows that employees with higher social emotional intelligence are twice as productive. They're more creative, they're more innovative, they work better in groups, and the benefits go on. So these skills and tools these kids are going to use in their relationships, teaching their kids throughout their lives. They're just better human beings, happier, more well adjusted. They have more purpose and more meaning in their lives. It's just so vitally important. And we also know that it reduces substance abuse and mental illness and suicide and depression, incarceration, all of the negatives. So so back to courageous leadership in New Hampshire. So we've been able to do what no other program, despite tens of millions of dollars and decades of attempts, has been able to do. And that is really be in a state, but in a very comprehensive way, not just in 3/4 of the state schools, but also in the Department of Corrections, in the Department of Health and Human Services, in libraries. Bus drivers are choosing love. Police departments are choosing love. Youth, at-risk youth facilities are choosing love. And the list goes on because they understand the importance and they want to have a consistent message of thoughtfully responding with love. Because here's the bottom line: we can't always choose what happens to us. And of course, this pandemic is a perfect example. No one would choose a global pandemic, but we can take our personal power back in how we choose to respond. And when we respond with love, kindness, compassion, caring, concern, civility, we are taking our personal power back. When we react with prolonged anger, hatred, and revenge, we're giving our personal power away. We're becoming victims, and we're out of control. And that is the worst feeling. That's the definition of being a victim.
Yeah. Oh, listen, you're still speaking my language. And Dan has been making comments here about hooking you up with some people. So I want to introduce you to some people that can certainly help move that. She's talking about Joseph McClendon III, who's a good friend of mine, who's Tony Robbins' partner. He's the one that speaks on his stage. And there's a program that I've been a coach at that Tony Robbins does, which is a Global Youth Leadership Summit, where 300 to 400 kids come from around the world. And we put them for 5 days. They go through 5 or 6 days. It's in University of San Diego. We put them up in the dorms, and they go through basically Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny. I don't know if you've ever been to a Tony Robbins event.
I have.
Okay, so have you ever been to Date with Destiny?
Actually, do you know that Tony Robbins came to Newtown and he handpicked the people that he thought were the most resilient? And so he chose to speak with a group of people, and JT and I were in that group. So he and Sage were there, and he went around. We got to share our story and how we responded. And he was so impressed with JT, my son, who was 12 years old at the time. He had started an organization called Newtown Helps Rwanda. And it's an incredible story, but Tony donated $10,000 to his organization right on the spot because he was so impressed, which was amazing. And then he invited us to an event in New Jersey. So we did go down for the weekend event.
Okay, so imagine it's UPW on steroids.
Yeah.
So UPW is the appetizer and Date with Destiny is the main course. And so we do this for kids. And I'd love to put you in contact with the people that run that event. It's not Tony. Tony's not at that event, but I'd love to put you in contact with the people that run that event, because I think what you've got to teach is brilliant. And I think that it might be one of the most important things for people to learn, not just kids, but adults. So you've got a friend in me, so to speak. So I'll be making some calls to see what. Again, I don't know how much I can do, but certainly I'm going to put you in contact with some people that I know that are both in the educational system, and certainly through Tony Robbins and the people that organize the Global Youth Leadership Summit, which would be a great place to start, because again, it's 300-400 kids that come from around the world, some of them from impoverished countries and just from all walks of life. Because this is something that affects everyone. Matter of fact, it probably affects people more in first world countries than in third world countries. Because in third world countries, they're dealing with some other even worse situations, right? But it's just different, the way that culturally that things get handled. But I think that what we're talking about here is it's huge, and I'm so excited to be here with you today to be able to share this. I mean, I know I've already said that a couple of times. I feel like I keep repeating myself only because I am.
Well, and it is universal, because we're all connected by the want and need to love and be loved. Love is connection. We are born to connect. We have to connect for our survival. Yet we all feel pain and suffer. We know that. And we know, oh, wow, we're all susceptible to COVID-19, yet we all just want to be happy. So this is a very universal thing. It's why it's now in over 100 countries. And I did notice a comment that I want to respond to. Dan Mosier, he said he's heard that this is religious. and that's I haven't heard that a lot, but the interesting thing is, love is in every single culture, right? Love is courage, religious, is gratitude, forgiveness, compassion, and action. I mean, tell an atheist that they cannot practice those character values, and I think that they would probably be pretty upset with you. Right?
Well, the one thing I'll say is, and I say this all the time, criticism is the price you pay for success. So you're always going to get it. And until you have some real haters, then you know you're not making enough of an impact. You really start getting haters and people attacking you when you're doing the right thing. So
Yeah,
if the people,
I appreciate the questions, because this had to be 100% secular to go into schools,
sure.
and
Well, I'm not saying he's being hateful, by the way. I'm not saying that at all, Dan. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
saying that in general. By the way, I've got another friend of mine because I decided to grab my phone, and this is the first time I'm doing this. I'm actually streaming this to Instagram as well, which I started kind of late in the game, but I am streaming to Instagram. So a friend of mine who actually he does marketing Mondays with me every Monday, Scott Martin from Groundswell Marketing, just said that he'd love to have you on as a guest on Waves of Impact because he's got a podcast called Waves of Impact. So you are certainly someone who would fit perfectly in there, and he's got a broad audience as well. So again, look, we keep hearing about getting the message out and going to different stages, and this is yet another stage that you're coming on that I'm so grateful to have you on. And here now you have an opportunity to get on another stage with my friend Scott Martin. I'll put you guys together after this. I mentioned to you that I had Nick sent Nick yesterday, Santos Satato. Damn it, I always screw that up. Sorry, Nick. So I'm going to put you together with him as well because he's doing a lot with as well. So I'm going to put you together with him. I've got like 4 or 5 people that I want to connect you with.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, that's how we've gotten the word out. I just show up and I talk about it because I'm so passionate about it. This is also my life's mission. It's part of post-traumatic growth. When you go through trauma, there are positive things that can come out of it. And sometimes you find your life's purpose. And I certainly have. And I am so appreciative of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And when you find your life's purpose, that's when you really tap into that joy. And what an amazing legacy you're leaving for your son, because of your son, to honor his memory. Oh my God.
Well, you know what, Tony? Jesse is he is known for saving 9 of his classmates' lives before losing his own. So for that act of bravery, Jesse is now shortlisted for the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian honor. And we found that out very shortly after his murder. And really, I thought, talk about modeling. I thought, wow, if Jesse had the courage at 6 years old, by the way, to stand up to the shooter that had just shot his principal and school counselor right outside his first grade door and then turned in, his gun ran out of bullets. During the short delay, Jesse calls to his friends to run, and they did because he told them to. If Jesse can do what he did at 6 years old, myself as his mom can certainly take that platform that he created and use what I've learned through his tragedy, understanding that it was 100% preventable, and make sure that nobody else, or do my best at least to stop the suffering that our kids are experiencing now. This addresses the cause of almost all of the suffering, and therefore it is the solution. It's just a little bit different way of thinking, but it's all science. That is the most amazing thing about this. It is all science, all neuroscience. It is all proven through research to work. It just needs people to come on board and pick it up. And it's free. It's free.
Wow. It's time to evolve. It's evolution. And again, I'm going to say it again. Sometimes what's free is hard for people to adapt because they don't give the value that it deserves, right? And I know that's so crazy, but in the world that we live in, people don't value free. Listen, I've done events, I've done masterminds that I do for free, where things that people can't get one-on-one coaching with me or with the other two guys that I do this with for multiples of what we would charge. And we don't have the attendance that we thought we would because it's free. Because people don't, in many cases, don't value what's free. And I know that's crazy. You would think that people would swallow it up, but it's harder to, I think, accept and adopt when it is free than if it was paid for. And certainly, I'll venture to say that you've got competition with people that are trying to do something similar that do charge a lot of money, and they've got a strong hold with the system. And unfortunately, listen, it's unfortunate, but there's corruption everywhere. So it's more about money than it is about anything else. I hate to say it. It's unfortunate, and that's not me being, pessimist. It's just, unfortunately, it's true. But like I said, I will definitely be an advocate for you.
Thank you.
To try to make as many waves as possible. Speaking of waves, again, my buddy Scott Martin from Groundswell Marketing, that's what he talks about. He talks about there's a tremor, and then it starts with the ripple, and the ripple becomes a wave, and the wave becomes a tsunami, and that's how we change the world, right? And we change the world by the impact that we make one-on-one, by sharing our message to 1 and 2 and 5 and 7 people that are watching here, even though I'm sure there's many more. For whatever reason, it always says 7, but when we're done, it's a lot more than that. But we share that message, and hopefully Dan and Gina and Dana and Mark and Danielle and Jules and David and Alex and watching on Instagram as well, that they're going to go and they're going to share not only this video, but share your message and share your story and follow you at what is it? Choose Love Movement.
Choose Love Movement on Twitter. It's Scarlett M. Lewis. Scarlett with 2 T's. Yeah,
Dana, you're good. Type that in, if you will. Choose Love Movement at Instagram. And only because I've got my phone in front of my keyboard, and I'm just going to screw this all up if I see I've got it. I'm kind of happy the way of doing this. So if somebody can type that in, please follow Scarlett. Follow her on Instagram, follow her on Twitter, follow her on Facebook, support her, talk to the principals in your school, because here's the thing. And again, I'm going to connect you with a friend of mine, Dan Clark, who Dana knows as well. And he, under the Reagan administration, went around the country teaching stuff like this in school. So I'm going to connect you with, anyway, I'm excited to get involved with this and to go and spread the message. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know, Dana had told me about you, but when we really got to speaking is when you really got my heart. So so one of the things that he says is the idea is you've got to get to the principals actually have more power in this than anything else. They're the ones that spearhead all of this. So you've got to get the coalition of principals. You've got to get, to them. And from there, that's where that groundswell starts. That's where the ripple starts. So yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, there's comments coming in from different places here. From England. Hey, Mark, good to see you, my friend. Unconditional love. Yeah. It's really just about spreading the love and spreading the hope and letting people know that there's a way out. It's not just medicating, and we need to stop medicating, putting Band-Aids on wounds. We need to stop trying to numb the pain and figure out what the hell's causing the hurt. Right. Because until you stop the bleeding, there's that quote again, like my life's a series of quotes. If you don't heal, if you don't stop the bleeding, or if you don't heal what hurt you, you're going to bleed on people that didn't cut you. Right. And if you don't heal your old hurts or your old wounds, you're going to make other people suffer, which is exactly what Adam Lanza did and what so many other people do, because they don't heal their own pain and they stay in the suffering and they don't grow through what they go through. Right. And that's really, so ultimately, I think I've got to add a catchphrase to my slogan, which is emotional learning, because that's really what it's about. Right. and you know, tag in yet another friend of mine with another movement, which, by the way, I'm going to speak to you about. A friend of mine, Sean Callaghan, has a program called Unblinded, because he actually went blind, but he's got the sales program that he does, where he says that we're all blind and learning to see. And isn't that the truth?
I love that. That's amazing. I have another quote too. It's a Nelson Mandela quote, and I share this. People aren't born to hate. They're born to love, and they're taught to hate. And if they can be taught to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. And I always talk about Adam Lanza that way. Kids aren't born mass murderers, right? They're born, and we know this through science. I said this in the beginning. I think that everything that I talk about is the latest scientific research, the latest neuroscience. We even know babies are born gravitating towards love through science. And so they are taught to hate. And if they can be taught to hate, they can be taught to love. And there's the Choose Love movement to do it.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things that I say, so I brought up Sean Callaghan, the Unblinded movement, because one of the things I said, and I'm aligned with his movement as well, because really you have to become unblinded in order to get up and grow. You need to be able to be willing to see what you were choosing not to see, refusing to see.
Yeah.
Right. You've got to open your eyes to what happened and see things as they are, not worse or better than they are. Unblind yourself, open your eyes to what's happening to be able to grow through what you go through. Right. And so listen, and I'm going to make another invitation to you. If you're available tomorrow at 1:30 in the afternoon, I'd love to have you come on. There's something that he's putting together. That's the Unblinded Business Accelerator. And I'd love you to come on as my guest and be kind of on my team, so to speak. It's free. It's 6 sessions for 90 minutes on Fridays. I'd love you, because I'd love to bring you into the free, because your message is so powerful, and what the connections that we can make within that group can take. I'm excited, and anyway, we'll talk offline on that.
Okay, that'll be great.
But you know, I'm so excited for. I'm seriously, you've got my heart pumping. You really do, and
it's exciting, isn't it? And
it really is.
It's a huge opportunity with the pandemic. I mean, everybody's home, they're reassessing, reevaluating out what's important to them. And I think that, you know, this is a brave new world. I'm calling it a brave new world, and we can do things differently. We can do things right. This has brought the curtain back on the issues that our kids are having, and we have a solution. We just have to get outside our comfort zone. And by the way, we are. The pandemic has done that for us. So we have a solution. We just have to find the courage within ourselves to implement it, to do something in a different way. Yes, we're not used to being proactive and preventative, but all the science is leading us to this solution, and we're just going to have to do it. Yeah.
Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good, because I noticed a call came in because your screen flashed. So I'm glad that you didn't get disconnected. Yeah, listen, you know, Dana just said that I knew you would love her, and she was so right. Because again, it kind of aligns. It aligns with my message. It aligns with what I'm doing and what I'm passionate about. Because I was one of those kids that should have been a statistic. I was one of those kids that did not have a happy childhood, that was told I wouldn't amount to anything, that was beaten on a regular basis. That, you know, I was one of those kids. You know, so you're speaking to my heart in a way that you have no idea. You have no idea. This is so, yeah, powerful. So
I love that. Thank you.
I'm going to do what I can to help you push this as far and wide as possible. And again, man, I don't even know what to say. I've got the chills. Seriously, I've got the chills.
I live in goosebumps. I live in goosebumps. Different situations that come up, you know, when you just know that it's right, you know, you're supposed to be doing what you're doing. It really is a blessing. And you know, it started with, you know, a terrible tragedy, obviously, but this is the right thing to do. And I feel very blessed to be the messenger of love. You know, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. I will say that Jesse left a message for his 12-year-old brother. He was leaving us little messages, kind of like he had a spiritual awareness that he wasn't going to be with us for very long. But he left a message for his 12-year-old brother when JT came back to the house. On his desk, there was a little piece of paper folded up very tightly, and it said, "Have a lot of fun." And JT showed me that message, but I said, "Wow, JT, I know that that's for you, but it's also for all of us, because that's what we're supposed to be doing in life. The two most important things, and by the way, this is what research tells us, is choosing love as the foundation of every choice that we make, because we're either choosing from a base of love or fear, and the outcome looks vastly different, and having a lot of fun. And there's so much research behind that as well. We've, back in the 60s, there was a tremendous amount of research done on shooters, on mass murderers. And they found that one of the largest commonalities that they had was lack of unstructured play. So both these messages are really kind of the foundation of the Jesse Lewis Choose Love movement. And they're so important, and they're important for our lives as well as adults.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. Like I said, what a legacy you've created, and what an amazing little boy he was. And I do believe that that he was just one of those little angels that was among us. And his time was he saved those little children, and the messages that he left for you on the refrigerator and left for your other son were undoubtedly life changing, right?
Oh, Tony, I have to send you my book. We had to leave out messages. They're like mind boggling. I'll send you a copy.
Yeah,
it's called Nurturing Healing Love, of course, because that was the message that Jesse left on our kitchen chalkboard. But it's filled with amazing stuff.
At 6. Amazing.
Yeah, at 6.
Wow.
At 6. Yes. Yeah. It is just mind boggling.
Wow. So amazing. Wow. This honestly, this has been better. We haven't even gotten into the conversation we were going to have, which is interesting.
That's true. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, we were talking about, we were going to have a conversation. We don't usually structure this, but we were having such an engaged conversation a week and a half or 2 weeks ago when we first spoke, that we said we got to have this conversation. We haven't even had the conversation, but this has been so good. This has been so good. And I definitely want to have you on again, because this is to say it's beyond powerful. It's beyond powerful, and it's a message that needs to get out to so many. But give us, if you could, right now, for the next couple of minutes, for the people that are watching, what are one or two, maybe even 3 simple things that we can do? We can each do as adults that we can. Great. Dana says you'll cry the entire time you read her book. I'm ready.
Wait to get it right.
I'm already kind of tearing up over here. So give us 2 or 3 quick ones, or just 1 or 2, or 1, because I want to be respectful of your time. Certainly, we're over an hour already, and everyone who's watching, give us 1 or 2 or 3, if there's time for that, tips or strategies to be able to get to that next level.
Yeah, well, these are pretty simple, but they all stem from Jesse's message of nurturing, healing, love. That actually, I told you that I had linked up with a doctoral professor. He was the director of the Compassion, Creativity, and Innovation Center at Western Connecticut State University. His name is Dr. Chris Cook. He's been on my board of directors, but he did some research on those 3 words, nurturing, healing, love. And he found that they're in the definition of compassion across all cultures. And then together we broke down the meaning of each of the words, and we found that they comprised a powerful and profound formula for choosing love. So that means thoughtfully responding in love in any situation, circumstance, or interaction you will ever come across. And so I'm going to give you that formula right now. And this is literally a skill and tool that you will have in your tool belt. You know, that tool belt of life that we all have strapped around our waists, and
Yeah.
we continuously add skills and tools, and sometimes we take away the ones that don't work for us. Well, this will be a skill and tool in everyone's tool belt
So
from now until eternity.
Write this down. Write it down. Write it down. Somebody please type it in, but write it down.
But you know what? It's so simple. I don't even think you have to write it down. And really, the best things in life are simple. It is so simple. It's not necessarily easy, but it's simple. And the formula starts with courage. And because everything starts with courage. Courage is the most important character value because it's the character value that underlies all the rest of them. And I always give Jesse's example of courage because at 6 years old, if he could save 9 of his classmates' lives, the interesting thing about sharing that story is that we all have that courage within us. Science tells us that courage is like a muscle. And we have to be aware of it, but we can strengthen it. And the way that you can activate courage is by creating a space in between what happens, the stimulus, and our response. Because when you react with the part of your brain that's freeze, fight, or flight. It's not necessarily courage. Sometimes it is. But the majority of what happens with us in life is something that we can thoughtfully respond to, and we want to be responding with our prefrontal cortex. So we talk about one of the things that we teach in the program is called Brave Breath, and it's actually the same breath that the Navy SEALs do before they go out on their missions. But this helps create a space between what's happening to us and how we choose to thoughtfully respond. It helps us engage our courage, and it is simply just taking in a breath to 4 counts of courage and bravery, holding it for 4, breathing out fear and anxiety and resentment for 4, and then holding it for 4, and then doing that 3 times. It's called the Brave Breath. It's actually one of the favorite things that the kids do. And then once we're aware of our courage and we're practicing our courage like a muscle, we move into nurturing. Nurturing means loving kindness and gratitude. And we know that gratitude, I mean, I haven't even started to talk about thoughts, and we can control our thoughts, and our thoughts create our beliefs, which create our perception of our reality. And we have so much more control because of our thoughts. The majority of our thoughts every single day are negative and repetitive. We know this through the latest neuroscience and because of our negative bias. And so we get caught in these negative thought loops, with our negative bias. And gratitude, we call the great mind shifter, because you can only focus on one thought at a time. So you can only focus on a lower energy thought or a grateful thought. So you can have courage to be grateful, especially when things aren't going our way. And then that actually strengthens us to consider forgiveness for ourselves or someone else, understanding that courage is literally, my new and improved definition is simply taking your personal power back. That is forgiveness. But it takes courage. It takes courage because we have to look at the stories that we're telling ourselves. Sometimes we have to take personal responsibility for our own healing. We have to stop blaming and finger pointing, and that takes courage. And that's forgiveness for ourselves and for someone else. And there's nothing that can't be forgiven. And then we move, and that strengthens us to consider compassion, and we call it compassion in action. And it's interesting, Tony, because especially during the time of the coronavirus, it's really important to understand that compassion has 2 components. The first component of compassion is the identifying of a need component, the empathetic component. And empathy is actually a painful process. You said you had you were on the verge of crying, but empathy lights up the same receptors in our brain as physical pain. So when you thought you felt my pain, you actually did. And there is something called empathy burnout and empathy fatigue, erroneously called compassion burnout or compassion fatigue. There's actually no such thing as compassion fatigue or burnout, but there is empathy fatigue and burnout. That's why it's really, really important to understand that compassion has two components. The second component, the first component is the identifying component. The second component is the action component. And that's when we look outside ourselves and use our gifts and talents to help other people. And we know through science that that's when all of our nurturing, healing love that we give out comes back to us. So to put it all together, this is a method actually that can lead you to thoughtfully responding with love in any situation, circumstance, or interaction you will ever face. Now, I have been spreading this formula all throughout the world. No one has ever from any country contacted me and said, I had a situation where this wouldn't work. By the way, we're in the Department of Corrections in several states. In Connecticut, we have convicted felons. We have lifers, men that are in prison for life, for murder, that are actually teaching inmates, the younger inmates that will have an opportunity to get out and get back into the world. They're teaching them these essential life skills. And they've actually even said to me, if I had known these things, I most likely would not be in here. And I have to completely agree with them. I've told the administration in the Department of Corrections, you know what all of your guys have in common? Lack of social and emotional intelligence, because you have to learn it. And they didn't learn it. So anyway, when you put it all together, it's cultivating the courage to be grateful, and that is shifting your thoughts, and then to forgive, and then to step outside of your own pain to help other people. And when you've done that, you've chosen love, and you are literally making the world a safer, more peaceful and loving place. And when you don't do that, when you choose prolonged anger, hatred, and revenge, you're literally giving your personal power away. You are losing control, and that's the definition of a victim. And notice that I said prolonged anger, because I'm not judging any feeling that anybody ever has.
Oh, yeah.
And JT will be the first one to tell you that I get angry at something almost every day, but it's prolonged anger that is bad for us.
Well, listen, I tell people one of the things that I teach is that all emotions are good. They're there to serve us. They're just indicators. It's like you're the pilot of your life, and your emotions are the dashboard in your cockpit. And when the light goes off, it means you got to pay attention. If there's pain, imagine you couldn't feel pain. You're you're in your kitchen, you lean over, you put your hand on the stove, you don't even know it's burning. Now you're going to lose your hand because you've got to cut it off. So pain is an indicator. Fear is an indicator that, or whatever emotion you're going through is an indicator that you need to put attention to whatever that is. It's calling your attention. If it's stress, if it's anger, depression, whatever emotion you have, there is no wrong emotion. The idea is not to live in the negative emotions and live in the positive ones. So it's okay to get angry. It's okay to get frustrated. It's okay to get whatever. It's just not okay to stay there.
Right.
So listen, I can't thank you enough for this. This has been absolutely amazing. Dana says that you are the bravest person she knows. I agree with her.
Dana. That means a lot coming from you, Dana. Holy moly.
Yeah. What did she say here? She was not happy with 6-month-old Jasper zooming around the room on our book tour.
That's true. That's true. Dana knows that I lose my temper. I was like midnight.
Listen, we all do. We're human. right? We're all a
Yeah.
masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time.
I'm definitely human. Oh yeah.
Well, listen,
But I try to self-correct. I know when I make mistakes, and I try to self-correct. Dana knows that about me too.
well, listen, awareness is everything, right? Awareness of being able to recognize where you're not at your best is the beginning of getting better, of improving. So
Yeah.
listen, with that said, I don't want to take too much of your time. So any last words? Again, we're ready. So give us again, choose love on Instagram. It's again, if somebody can write this down again, it's at Instagram at Choose Love Movement.
It's Choose Love Movement on Instagram. On Twitter, it's Scarlett M. Lewis. It's Jessie Lewis Choose Love Movement on Facebook. Jessie spelled JESSELEWIS. And I would love for you all to follow us. I mean, this is a movement. It's the literal meaning of movement. It is, we have volunteers. Dana is our Choose Love Movement ambassador in Colorado. So she's responsible for spreading the movement in Colorado. And we have ambassadors in about 14 other states, but obviously we need more ambassadors. And these are volunteers. They just believe in this. A lot of them wanted it for their own kids. They understood the importance, but then of course they also understand that every time a child gets shot in their classroom, it is our responsibility. Whose responsibility is it to keep kids safe? The interesting thing is when your child gets shot in their classroom, you don't get, and I'm sorry, nobody's raising their hand to take responsibility, right? Or be held accountable. So that means that we're all responsible for our children's safety. And every time there is a school shooting or something that we hear on the news about children, it's our responsibility to keep them safe. And so this is a great way to be part of the solution. It's completely not political. It is all based in love. And so we welcome everyone, and we need help. We need help. This is an important message. It's getting even more important with the pandemic. And so we welcome everyone.
So everyone that's out here listening in our Get Up and Grow tribe, if anybody wants to step up, certainly listen. If you don't have anybody in New Jersey, I'd love to help however I can.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Again, I think that it's certainly something that I can get behind and support, because again, not only do I have kids, but I was one of those kids, and that's why again it was that much more powerful. And look, with that said, I just want to honor you. I want to honor your journey. I want to honor your struggle. I want to honor your commitment to not just your own children, but to the children of the world and to humanity. One of the quotes that I love, and I shared it with you before the call when we were actually testing the system, and it worked out perfectly, is, there's that comment that I had read that I've shared before, is everybody's worried about what kind of world we're going to leave our kids. It's time for us to focus on what kind of kids we're going to leave our world. Right? Because our children really are our future. And if we don't teach them well and let them lead the way, as the song goes, then what are we doing? We're failing our youth. We're failing humanity if we don't step up. So everybody just needs to step up, Dan says he's in Michigan. Well, Dan, listen, again, any support, message me here, message, and now relay the messages to Scarlett, or message Scarlett directly, whatever. Let's just all get behind this, because who can't get behind helping our children? Because the children really are our future. It wasn't just a Michael Jackson song, right? Children really are our future. We were all children once, remember? And our children are going to be adults, right? Let's just make sure that they're ready to raise their own children. They're ready to teach their own kids emotional resilience, emotional intelligence, so that we can stop this bullshit, these shootings, and then the finger pointing. Oh, it was the gun. It was the this. It was the that. Listen, stop. Let's go upriver and see what the hell is throwing the people in the river.
Right.
So, listen, with that said, I am so honored to be to have spent this time with you, and
Thank you so much, Tony.
And where we're going with this. I'm going to just wrap the show, but don't go away. I just want to speak to you for another minute or two.
Okay.
So anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, for all of your comments, for joining us, and for your questions, and for your support, not just for Get Up and Grow, but certainly for the Choose Love movement. Absolutely. Please follow Scarlett and her movement, and do everything that you can to be part of the solution. Because if we're not part of the solution, my friends, we are part of the problem. So I choose to be part of the solution, and I hope you do as well. So with that said, if you feel so compelled, do share this video. We're on YouTube, and we're on Facebook, and actually on Instagram, kind of jerry-rigged, but here we are. So with that said, my friends, I appreciate you. And remember that in life, it is not about how many times you fall. It's about getting up after every fall. And if you fall down 7 times, you get up 8. And it's in falling that we learn. It's in getting up that we grow. And every single time you fall, you have the opportunity to get up and grow. And grow we must. Otherwise, we just keep going through what we go through. We keep suffering through what we went through. So, and when you get up, help somebody else do the same. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. And ciao for now. Appreciate all of you.
Thank you.